mynews.studio.
China's solar panels now outshine its coal plants. But what does this mean for the global climate race?
Today is 2025, 11/15. Let's get straight to it. China's carbon emissions, which have defined the global climate conversation for decades, have plateaued. In fact, there are early signs they might even be declining. What changed so quickly?
The main driver is renewables. Over the last 18 months, China's rolled out solar and wind at a scale no one's matched before. In just the first 9 months of 2025, they added 240 gigawatts of solar and another 61 of wind. That solar figure alone is almost 3 times Germany's total solar capacity installed in just 1 year.
Wait, that's quite a comparison. So, with all this new capacity, did renewables finally overtake coal in China?
Yes, for the first time, the combined capacity of wind and solar surpassed coal in early 2025. Renewables now make up close to 40% of China's total power generation. And here's a key point. Even with surging electricity demand during record hot summers, they managed to meet it without bumping up emissions.
How did China pull this off? Was it just a market response, or were government policies at the core?
It was highly coordinated. The government set aggressive targets, like hitting 1,200 gigawatts of wind and solar by 2030. But they're going to get there 5 years early. These targets went into their 5-year plans, which lock in investment and regulatory support.
And what about incentives? Did they make it cheaper or easier for companies to invest in renewables?
Absolutely. They offered feed-in tariffs, low-interest loans, direct subsidies, and sped-up permitting. There were also new pricing regulations in 2025 that led to a rush of new solar installations before subsidies scaled back. Local governments chipped in too: tax breaks, easier land access, and help with grid connections.
That's a lot of moving pieces. But what about the supply side? Did industrial policy play a role in making equipment affordable?
Yes, and that's a big part of China's advantage. By supporting domestic manufacturing, they drove down the cost of solar panels and wind turbines, not just for themselves, but globally. That's why solar and wind are cheaper in many places today.
So, with emissions peaking earlier than planned, how has China responded in terms of its climate targets?
The government's now aiming for a 7 to 10% cut in emissions from their peak by 2035. Some analysts say that's conservative, but China has a track record of beating its own climate goals. The trend is critical because it signals a real shift. If 2025 ends with lower emissions, it'll be the first full year of actual declines.
That's significant for the rest of the world. Do you think this will push other big emitters, like the US, India, or the EU, to accelerate their own decarbonization?
It's already having an effect. China's scale is pushing down equipment costs everywhere, making renewables more accessible. For the US and EU, there's competitive pressure. No one wants to be left behind in the clean energy race. India, with high energy demand and coal dependence, could look to China's approach as a model.
Could this shift the tone of international climate negotiations? If China peaks emissions early, does it change what's possible globally?
It raises expectations, for sure. If China can pivot this fast, it's harder for others to argue that rapid transition is impossible. But the flip side is that China's targets for 2035 are still modest, and some sectors, like chemicals, are still growing their emissions.
Right, and that brings up the risks. What might slow or reverse China's progress? Are there any major obstacles on the horizon?
Several. Technologically, integrating so much intermittent solar and wind is tough. The grid needs big upgrades, more storage, and flexible backup. Some regions still rely heavily on coal, and local governments may push back if the transition threatens jobs or stability. Plus, economic slowdowns in heavy industry have helped emissions plateau. But if demand picks up again, that could change.
And internationally, there's the risk of trade tensions or supply chain disruptions. If China can't get the materials it needs for batteries or turbines, the pace could slow.
Exactly. Sustaining momentum will take more than just investment. It'll need continued policy support, innovation, and coordination across sectors. The emissions plateau is a milestone, but it's not the end of the story.
So bottom line, China's emissions have plateaued, driven by record solar and wind deployment, aggressive policy, and industrial strategy. The world's largest emitter is now setting a new pace for decarbonization, but plenty of challenges remain.
And the global impact is clear. China's pivot shows that rapid, large-scale change is possible, even in the coal heartlands. But will others follow? And can China keep up the momentum?
That's the question we'll be tracking. Thanks for joining us as we unpacked the facts behind China's emissions plateau.
Thank you for listening. This episode was powered by the mynews.studio. Try now for free.